July 2023, and this is a special call board meeting to discuss a couple items, the Choice Neighborhood Program and visioning session. I want to welcome members from the Goldsboro Housing Authority Board of Directors here today, and we hope to, when you leave here, you have a better idea of the current state of both these programs. Also want to thank the visitors we have here today. I assume you're here to learn as well, and I hope when you leave, you'll have more information. I'm going to jump right into this and ask because this is a meeting of our board, I'm going to ask our clerk to call the roll.
Mayor Ham.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Matthews.
Present.
Councilman Gaylor.
Present.
Councilman Batts.
Here.
Councilwoman Jones. Here.
Okay, we do have a quorum, and so we can proceed. We have our speaker here today. Now, let me ask our city manager, Sam, do you have anything you want to speak to?
So I'm just glad that the board from the Housing Authority can be here, Mr. James, the Mayor's consultants can be here to kind of inform the public on where we're at with this.
Why don't you introduce Mr. James?
James, why don't you go ahead and...
I'll introduce myself. My name is Bill James, Principal Consultant with Chicago-based planning consultant Camiros Limited. For those of you who may not know, we assisted the Housing Authority in the city in the grant application for the Choice Neighborhood Planning Grant. It was successful, which is why we're here doing this planning process. I am joined by my associates at Camiros, Sierra Bertquist and Mitch Arona. They are assisting on this process, and we are here to talk about our vision for the neighborhood and also about the planning process itself, the Choice Neighborhoods program. It's important that everybody kind of be on the same page and have a common understanding of what this is all about, why we're doing this. So that's what we're here today to talk about.
Bill, let me interrupt you just a second. For our visitors, two things. One is we do have restrooms. They're out in the hallways there. If you need to go, you'll find them. Also, we at one point we will break for lunch for our board members, both sets of board members, our speaker and so forth. We did not bring lunch for the guest here, but you are welcome anyway. So, given that, sir. Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Let me, thank you, Tim. Why don't we have the board members from the Housing Authority to introduce yourselves, because our board may not be familiar with you. So, Madam President.
Okay, I'm Jean Parks Whitfield. I'm chairman of the board.
I'm Don Barnes, I'm the vice chair.
Sierra Carmichael.
Good morning, I'm Sherry Archibald, board member.
Okay. Is there any other housekeeping things I've overlooked?
And there are typically how many on your board?
7.
Seven, so you have a quorum here as well.
Okay, Mr. James.
A very basic and important component of the choice planning process is partnership building. Everybody in the community joining together around a common cause to not only improve the neighborhood, but the community in general. I would like staff from the Housing Authority to introduce themselves, beginning with
Keith Curtis.
Aisha Razak Ellis. Sharita Oaks.
Jessica Goldman.
Mac Murray.
Cindy Collins.
Thank you very much. And we have representatives from downtown Goldsboro here. I'd like them to introduce themselves.
Eric Fonseca.
And you're not going to introduce yourself?
He's not.
I know you're not with the board, but okay. So we're very happy. Anybody else want to introduce
And we
yourself?
also have a representative from Seymour Johnson here as well.
Oh, yes,
Yeah,
please.
hey, Colonel Todd Walker. Hi, nice to see you.
Great. Glad to have you here. Wonderful that we have everybody here together. Nice group. So we are here to conduct a visioning process for the neighborhood. Before we actually begin to do the plan, we want to try to articulate a shared vision for what we want the neighborhood to become. Okay, what are our aspirations, what are our goals, what things we want to address. So that's what we're here to talk about. And before we actually get into the visioning, Tim asked me to provide some basic information on the Choice Neighborhoods Planning Program so that we all know about that. So let's start our presentation. So the Choice Neighborhood Program is HUD's program to transform distressed public housing sites and the distressed neighborhoods that surround them into what we call neighborhoods of choice. Every planning grant that gets awarded is for a distressed neighborhood that has a distressed public housing site or development within it. So here in Goldsboro, we have the West Haven housing site, which has been determined to be distressed, physically distressed, design distressed, environmental distress with floodplain issues and other things. So it is distressed and needs to be redeveloped. So that's one core requirement of making an application for a Choice Neighborhoods Planning Grant is that you have a distressed public housing site in your neighborhood, and then the neighborhood needs to be distressed. Okay, it needs to be distressed in terms of high concentration of poverty, typically high violent crime, long-term vacancy of housing units, general disinvestment in the area, vacant lots, vacant buildings, lack of economic gain. So every Choice Neighborhood Planning Grant has these qualities to it. So your neighborhood here, your housing site here is very much typical of what gets funded. Okay. When we talk about a neighbor of choice, we talk about a neighborhood that is good enough to attract people who could choose to live anywhere, okay? Which is not the same as if everybody wants to live in the neighborhood, not everybody wants the same kind of thing, but that the neighborhood, the quality of the neighborhood is good enough to attract people who could choose to live anywhere. That's what we want to have happen here in our West Oak neighborhood, Central Goldsboro area. So HUD, this is the current program that HUD has for addressing distressed public housing sites in distressed neighborhoods. It's been a work in progress. There's been past programs that HUD has learned from. And I happen to think that this program, this Choice Neighborhoods program, is far and away the best, and actually probably the best community development process out there. I think it works. I think people who embrace it will find that it works for them. The metrics around this program are very good. So of all the communities that have participated in the Choice Neighborhoods Planning Grant and planning process, there's been a very significant rise in employment within these neighborhoods nationwide, significant increase in incomes for households within these neighborhoods, significant attraction of market rate investment in these neighborhoods, and reduction in crime, increased academic efficiency in education. So all of these positive metrics have one thing in common, is that these are communities that have participated in the Choice Neighborhoods planning process. So it works, and I think that is really the good news that we have to share, and that we are involved in this process. Let's go to one point that I want to concentrate on here is that this Choice Neighborhood planning process is holistic. So one thing HUD has learned is that you can't just focus on housing and change a neighborhood. So the Choice Neighborhood process is holistic. We have a separate people plan we're going to do, a separate housing plan, and a separate neighborhood plan. So all three components are important to create this neighborhood of choice. You need to have successful people in a neighborhood to make it a successful neighborhood. So we're doing a people plan to support people needs, whether they be educational needs, whether they be workforce training, job placement, income, household finance management, all of those kinds of things. We're going to find out what people need here in this neighborhood so that they can be successful. okay? The neighborhood has to be successful. You have to have the amenities in the neighborhood to attract people who can choose to live anywhere. You need good schools, you need good parks, you need good infrastructure, you need attractive buildings, you need a high-quality environment. Okay, so that will all be part of the neighborhood plan that we're creating. And then the housing plan, every successful neighborhood needs good housing that people want to live in, that people want to pay for and buy, and we need mixed income housing for people of all income levels, from the wealthy to the not so wealthy, okay? And that this is the kind of neighborhood that actually, a diverse neighborhood that has all these qualities, this kind of neighborhood that people want. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Some additional elements of the Choice Neighborhood Program. So when you look at our neighborhood here, and it's very typical of other choice neighborhoods in other communities across the country, what does this neighborhood need to become a neighborhood of choice? Well, the level of improvement that's needed is broad and thorough. It's not just a little bit here and there. It needs a lot of work, okay? And so that's why HUD calls the resulting plan out of this process a transformation plan, because the plan to improve, to modify the current neighborhood has to be broad, it has to be comprehensive, it has to be thorough. It's not just a little bit of improvement, but wholesale improvement. So it is a transformation. As part of the Choice Neighborhood Planning process, HUD offers the opportunity for communities that go through the planning process to apply for what's called a Choice Neighborhoods Implementation Grant. The current dollar value of this grant is $50 million. Something like 5 or 6 communities get this award every year. There may be 25 or 30 that apply, so it's highly competitive. The planning grant program was also competitive, so 11 communities were awarded in the round of awards that Goldsboro got its grant out of something like 25 or 30 applicants. So it's also competitive, but the implementation grant is more competitive. The planning process shows communities how to transform distressed neighborhoods through leveraging existing assets, building partnerships, and inducing market rate development. Okay, so it actually shows you how to transform your neighborhood, whether or not you get the $50 million. Everybody wants the $50 million. It takes a lot of hard work to it's not just writing a grant application, it's actually beginning to transform the neighborhood before you make the application. So you prove to HUD that you can do it. Okay, so it is possible to get. You have to work hard for it, and you have to start early. And the planning process should inform us on whether we have that capacity. So we need a robust planning process. We need people who are enthused, people who come out to events, people who will work to help organize this, okay? And that also demonstrates the capacity that HUD is looking for in making the implementation grant awards. Okay, what else do we have to talk about in terms of the choice program? So we talked about the distressed target housing site, that is the West Haven site. The plan will be a plan that includes the redevelopment of that site, okay? The new housing doesn't have to go on that site. It has to go within our neighborhood area, anywhere within our neighborhood area. We may choose to redevelop back on the same site. We may choose to break it up. We may choose to develop in different parts of the neighborhood. That's what the planning process is about, and we're going to talk about that in our visioning session today. Mixed income communities is a core tenet of the choice neighborhood planning process. Many studies have shown, I have seen personally, and you can also see the data yourself, positive things happen when you have mixed income communities. Bad things happen when you concentrate poverty. Okay, I've done probably 10 of these choice neighborhood plans. We did one in Rome, Georgia. That neighborhood had a school attendance boundary that ran right through the middle of the neighborhood. Half of the neighborhood went to a school that had mixed income households, and half the neighborhood went to a school where everybody was low mod. Okay, the academic proficiency of the school that was mixed income was actually stellar. It was like a showcase school, and the school that had all low-mod households in it had abysmal academic proficiency. I mean, there's a correlation there, but any number of other examples and studies show that mixed income communities generate positive life outcomes for the people who live there. So that's one thing that we have to achieve with this plan in this neighborhood. And since the majority of, well, since there's a lot of poverty in the neighborhood, we have to bring in market rate housing. We have to bring in households that are not low income so that we achieve a mixed income community. So that's one of the challenges that we have. It's a challenge for every choice neighborhood plan, but I think we have the draw here to make it happen. Now, every tenant at West Haven will have the right to return to the redeveloped property. There's always a great fear among people living in the target housing site that we're doing this for the benefit of not them, but for other people, for the wealthier people who are moving in, okay? And that's not the case. We are making a mixed income community to benefit those low-mod households because better life outcomes will be achieved for these families if we create the mixed income community. We want to have 100% mixed income housing. We don't want any housing that's all public housing or all affordable. We want a mix of market rate and affordable housing together in the right proportion, okay, to sustain a market rate investment kind of environment. So since every tenant has the right to return, there are 300 units in West Haven now. We want to also have market rate investment, market rate housing as part of the housing program. So you take 300 and you add a certain amount of market rate units to that, whether it be 300 or 200. We're going to have a housing program that has 5 or 6 or even more 500 or more housing units in it. So we'll probably want a range of housing types, and not all housing types will be the same, and probably distributed around the neighborhood. So those are key characteristics, key attributes of the Choice Neighborhood Planning Program. And I think, is that our last slide on this topic? Okay. So before we move on to the visioning, does anybody have any questions about what I've talked about in terms of Choice Neighborhood and what we're trying to do? It is actually, I think, one of the more important initiatives that has gone on in Goldsboro. You're having a lot of investment now, but it's kind of all on the perimeter. You need a program that will bring investment back to central Goldsboro. I think that's very important, and this is the program that can do it.
I have a question.
Yes.
I know what split up means, but you say that there are 300 units in West Haven.
Yes.
And I understand you say that the neighborhoods may be split up, so does that mean that you're not going to put housing, the number of housing back in West Haven, and it will be split up and put somewhere else? Or can you explain to me what you mean by that?
The term split up kind of is kind of a threat. It sounds like a threat. So first of all, I'm not going to do anything, okay? Our group here is going to decide what the plan is. Well, we're going to provide different options, different alternatives as to how to structure the plan, but it's going to be the community, the steering committee, and the residents who actually decide how the plan is made. Okay, so that's number one. That's the first thing people need to understand. And so when we talk about where is the replacement housing going to go, that's up to all of you. Okay, we're not trying to split up anybody. We're trying to create this kind of model mixed income neighborhood, and we want to give people the housing that they want. We want to create the kind of housing that market rate people want. Okay, so we have to figure out what that is and how it is going to be configured. Does that answer your question?
Not really, but
Okay, I do want to answer it.
Let me see if I can add to it. So there's 300 units in West Haven right now,
right.
right? And you want mixed income, which means there has to be at least 600 units going forward. right?
Something like
You-
that.
I think we talked
Yeah.
before that the requirement for the implementation grant was you had to have at least twice as much. In other words, the low to moderate income could
Yeah.
not be greater than
Well,
50%.
Yeah, existing residents can't comprise more than 50% of the households in the new development. So when you say split up, okay, so actually, I would say you're right if you're saying we don't want the new housing to be occupied 100% by public housing residents. That would be correct. We don't want any portion of the 600 units to be occupied predominantly by public housing residents. We want to have it mixed, so that you, in a cluster of housing may have 20 homes, and maybe 10 of them are occupied by public housing residents, 10 of them are affordable, 10 of, and the rest are market rate. So we want to mix, we do want to mix people together in the new development. Does that answer your question?
A little bit, yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
how does the existing housing count? You know, if there's a lot of
Yeah.
local existing LMI versus market rate or whatever, how do you figure that into the calculation and the percentages, what we're trying to get to?
So we're really focused on what is the ideal mix of incomes in the replacement housing program. So for example, in Huntsville, Alabama, where we did a choice plan, they wanted a majority of the replacement housing be market rate, okay? Which means that we had a development program of like 1,000 units, because we had to have a replacement public housing. We wanted a component of non-public housing affordable units in that program. So, and 60% true market rate. So it became a very large program. Unfortunately, they have a very robust market and are able to achieve that kind of size, scale, and proportion of market rate to public housing and affordable housing.
So I was thumbing through the handout that you put on our desk. So, and slide 7 and 9 have maps for, I know we haven't gotten to that yet, but it's pertinent for the questions being asked. So right now, West Haven is designated as a portion of the larger West Oak neighborhood concept that's kind of being discussed here. So would all 300 units that currently exist in West Haven, would all of those residents still be given an option to live in this West Oak neighborhood that is being discussed right now?
Yes.
That every single person would still be...
Every single existing resident has the option for a new housing unit in the replacement housing that's built in the neighborhood.
And the neighborhood, as I look at it, is basically that whole census tract. It looks like it's all the way from, we'll get to that in a little while, but, so it's a much larger area.
It is,
so-
yeah. The neighborhood is a large area.
Okay,
It takes in the downtown, it takes in the southwest area, it takes in the northeast area. So it's almost all of what we call central Goldsboro. And I just want to go back to Alderman Jones's comment. So if you don't like the concept of splitting people up, you should say that, okay? And when we get to it, we'll get to this idea. Well, I want everybody to feel like they can say whatever they feel in this process and have an honest discussion. So I just want to make sure everybody understands that.
Let me make two comments, and correct me if I'm wrong in these. Number one, I think it's important that people who may not be familiar with the Choice Neighborhood Program and the supposedly $50 million. Number one, that money is not specifically restricted to moving the current neighborhood or replacing it, I should say. Those monies can be used for, you want to
Yes,
complete?
let me take it from, so the $50 million will be divided between housing money, people money, and neighborhood money, okay? Something like, out of 50 million, something like 30 or 32 or 35 million dollars will be for housing. So since we're going to be building all this housing, it costs money. Most of the money will be for housing, but there'll still be significant money for neighborhood improvements and people improvements, okay? So that's what people
I
need to
wanted to
understand.
clarify that. And the other thing that you've touched on, but, and Councilmember Jones spoke to, this is not also about just taking New Haven and putting all the people that are there now into a contiguous settlement, so to speak, another housing area. They will be, the concept here is to mix them in with market rate housing.
Integrate them in the broader
Workforce
community.
housing,
I
so
think,
forth. So
yeah,
there would
this-
be
this-
different locations within this area, that those homes would be built by private and/or housing authority monies that would consist of this mixed resident organization, not organization, but income, if you will. Low income, low middle income, market rate. Is that a correct statement?
Yes, yes, it is. And let me just give you the best insights come from residents themselves. We did a choice plan in Toledo, Ohio recently, and one of the residents, public housing residents, we were talking about mixed income, and she said, I have to say, you know, what you're saying about mixed income is right. I had a unit outside of a public housing site. I was in a townhouse, and nobody knew that we were public housing, because we lived in the same kind of housing that other people lived in, the market rate people lived in. And, you know, my daughter was very successful in her educational career. She got a doctorate. She's now a principal at a school. My son has his own business. He's very successful. And she said that she thought the fact that nobody knew that there were public housing and they lived in and amongst, you know, the general community, that was very much a factor in the success of her kids. She was a single parent. Okay, so those kinds of anecdotal kind of stories, to me, reinforce what the data says about the benefits of mixed income.
Is there stigma associated with some public housing areas, and that stigma is alleviated to some extent with the mixed-use concept?
Yes, I'm afraid communities in general stigmatize people who live in public housing, I think unfairly, but it happens. And so when you create housing where nobody knows, you know, who's who lives in public housing, and that a lot of people in West Haven work, okay? A lot of people who get affordable housing subsidies work as well, and we want them to be in an environment where they're supported and they have the best possible outcomes, just like everybody else.
Can I ask, we have roughly 300 units in West Haven, and the plan would require there to be roughly 600 low to mid income units. Do we have a read on?
Sorry, it would not be 600 low to mid-income units. It would be mixed income. So about half of them probably should be market rate or affordable for people who earn, say, 100, 120% of area median income. So it's not 600 affordable units.
Okay. Do we have a read for roughly how many units exist today in the West Oak map?
We do have data on how many residential dwellings there are in the West Oak neighborhood, if that's your question.
It is.
Yes, we do. I don't know if we can pull that up right now. We have files on that we can pull up. I don't have the number right off the top of my head. I would imagine it's somewhere in the 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 range, my guess.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
Just so I'm clear, and I'm sure you've provided the answer, but for me, if we're saying 600 units, right? There are currently 300 there. So I guess my question is, when you use the word invite, or they'll have the option to live there, is that saying they're having access to the 300, or is it 600 that are going to be moderate, affordable market rate? Are we saying, and I hope I think I'm confusing myself actually. The extra 300, are those gonna be the ones that are low to moderate, affordable, and mixed? Or are the 600 gonna be in that? Because in my mind, if we say those 300 current can come back, they won't be able to if they can't afford what's considered affordable and then the market rate.
Yeah.
They won't be able to afford it.
So there will be units reserved for the residents of West Haven.
Okay.
Okay, and we are going to do what's called a housing preference workshop with them to ask them what kinds of units they want. Would they, in communities, like some people want to live in an elevator building where there's ground floor retail and services. Some people would want to live in like the downtown area. Some people want to live more in a residential area. People want a townhouse. People want a duplex or in a six flat or something. So we'll ask them what kind of housing units they want, and then we're going to structure the housing redevelopment program based on what we hear.
Their
Obviously, we're
expense
also
wouldn't
going
change,
to
right?
we'll try to get a feel for what the market conditions are like so that we can know what kind of market rate units to bring in.
Sorry. Their expense, though, wouldn't change, it's just their environment.
Right, yeah. They would still pay 30% of their income on housing, whatever that income is. Whether it's $100 a month or it's $1,000 a month, they would pay 30% towards the housing that they get. And so the Choice Neighborhoods Program gives choices to the housing residents, the target housing site residents. So if they don't want to live in the redeveloped housing, they can choose other housing. And they can get a voucher, they can get a Section 8 voucher and use it wherever they want to in the community. If they want to live in a different community, actually the Housing Authority will help them relocate to a different community. So everybody gets a choice here. Not, we have to go back to the units that we're going to build here. Okay. Mitch?
There are 1,145 housing units in the West Oak neighborhood. 873 of those are occupied, 272 are vacant.
Okay.
That's 2026.
Okay, well, actually, it's not as many units as I thought. So about 1,000, right? Okay. And of that, 300 is the West Haven development. Does it include the West Haven development?
The 300 units are included in the 1,100.
Okay, 1,100. Okay. All right, so let's get on to our visioning. And at the end, we're going to answer any questions that come up as a result of the visioning session we're going to do. So we want to get some consensus on what our aspirations are for the neighborhood, what people want in the neighborhood, what kind of housing, what kind of land uses, what kind of vibe it has. So the visioning is not making the plan, but voicing shared expressions of broad aspirations that will provide guidance and direction for the plan. Okay? Next slide, Mitch. Okay. So we have steps in the visioning process to frame what we want for the West Oak neighborhood. These steps involve recognizing the neighborhood subdistricts. Okay, we talked about this being a big neighborhood. It's not all the same. So what are the different parts of the neighborhood? Assessing current trends and future expectations for the neighborhood. Where do we think the neighborhood is going with or without the choice neighborhood planning process? Gauging improvement potential. Where can we go with improving the neighborhood? Framing people, neighborhood, and housing policies. And setting guiding principles. These are the 5 steps that we're going to go through. Okay, so before we start, it'd be useful to provide some background on the Choice Neighborhoods Program. We kind of talked about this. Let's go on to the next slide. We talked all about this. So to participate in the visioning, you're going to use, hopefully everybody has their smartphone with them. And you need to take your smartphone out and put your camera on and take a picture of this QR code.
I have a question. about this. Is this the same survey that I've taken twice? No, I took it twice.
You're the star.
Yeah,
So,
so
I-
what we want to do is ask different groups of people
Okay.
in the community the same questions about what they want for the future of the neighborhood. And then we're going to compare what the different groups say. Okay? Hopefully, we'll get this consensus that, hey, regardless of whether you're on the city council or you live in West Haven, you have the same aspirations and hopes for the neighborhood. But we're going to find that out. So if you don't want to take it,
Yeah,
because
no,
you've already taken it?
I'm not gonna,
Okay.
I don't wanna skew the data
Okay.
because I've taken it twice.
Okay,
My answers will be the same.
okay, good. Okay, so has everybody scanned the QR code? Okay, so let the record show that we are including the audience as well as members of the two boards and commissions. Okay.
Also worth noting, we'll be going through the survey with the presentation. They go hand in hand, so try not to go ahead in the survey.
Just answer the question that you're being asked. Don't go ahead and answer the question you think is coming, okay? So that's very important. Some people want to rush through it, they're almost done. No, please wait until we ask you each individual question, okay? So, next slide. Okay. So, based on the discussion that we had about the choice neighborhood planning process, policies for redeveloping the West Haven public housing site, do you like the idea of building mixed income housing to replace existing public housing units? Is that a concept? Do you think that's a good concept? Yes, no, or unsure? So, on your phone, Mitch, you're going to press A, B, or C, right? Yes. Okay. Yes.
Just take your microphone. If you could take it with you, if you want to.
Okay, okay, okay. Yeah, so press A, B, or C. And we want to wrap this up. Anybody need more time?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, people get the hang of it and it'll go quicker. Okay, Mitch, why don't we see what our results are to this initial question about mixed income housing? Okay, so we had a total of 15 people respond to this question, and 14 said yes, they think it is a good concept. Mixed income housing is a good concept. One person was unsure, okay? So that tells us that, mixed income housing, that people think mixed income housing is a good thing. Okay, let's go on to the next question. So recognizing the neighborhood subdistricts. So we see in this area outlined in red, that's the whole neighborhood. It takes in a big part of central Goldsboro. It includes most of downtown, not all of it. The Historic Residential District, the West Haven housing site, areas west of the railroad tracks, and is bounded by Holly Street on the north, William Street on the east, and Highway 117, okay? So there you get a sense of where the neighborhood is at in Goldsboro. Let's go to the next question.
Mr. James?
Yes.
Can you describe how that neighborhood was devised and whether it can change or not, and the
Okay.
naming process and that stuff?
Yeah, the neighborhood boundaries were set during the planning grant application process. We wanted to take in a large area. We wanted to take in all the area we thought we would want to spend implementation grant money on if we got it, okay? And yeah, we wanted to also include areas that we thought would benefit from additional planning. So that's why the downtown is included. That's why these other areas, these other residential areas around the downtown are included in the neighborhood.
In the planning process, that could change, or no?
No, it cannot change.
Okay.
Okay. I mean, you could make recommendations for areas outside the boundary, but when it comes to implementing the plan, and if we get the implementation grant, you have to spend the money in these boundaries.
But could you redefine the
You
boundaries?
can't redefine the boundaries. There is a process, okay, that we got into this with another community. They wanted to change the boundaries, and it was, HUD resisted it. HUD eventually told them no. Theoretically, there is a process to amend the boundaries. I wouldn't recommend it, because I don't think you're going to be successful in getting HUD to accept different boundaries.
So if the boundaries, sorry, I turned my microphone off. So the boundaries cannot change, but each of the projects within, we could determine that we are only going to use a smaller.
Oh, yes. If you decide,
just
well,
can't be
we're not
bigger.
going to spend any money in this area over here, or we're not going to change that area over there, you can decide to do that. You don't have to.
But it cannot be outside of.
Yeah, cannot be outside the boundaries. Okay. Okay. This is the West Haven site for anybody who doesn't know where it is. Ash, Carolina. This is Oak Street here. Holly is up on the north. Okay. So we have sub-districts within the neighborhood. Okay. So 1 is the downtown area. 2 we're calling the historic residential neighborhood. 3 we're calling the northeast portion of the neighborhood, and 4 the southwest portion of the neighborhood. Okay? Each of these areas has different potentials, different conditions, okay? And we want to talk about prospects for each of these sub-districts.
Mr. James, I'm sorry, real quick. So back on that first one where you showed the West Haven map, right, with
Yes.
just the greenery. Now, the second one, if you can go to the next one. Let's go yeah, the one at the top. How much of that is extra outside of just the West Haven part? I'm just trying to see if that red line is this yellow line, or is it more?
Okay, so you
see what I'm asking?
Yellow line.
You see what the blue area up there? That's West Haven. That's West Haven in relation to the broader neighborhood.
So all of this, okay, thank you. So the red is the boundary that we can.
Of the whole neighborhood.
Entire West
Yes.
Oaks.
Yes.
Blue's
Okay.
West Haven, the red is what
Blue,
we're calling
okay.
West Oaks.
So
Okay.
the whole thing is about 1,100 residents, and then the
Correct.
blue is 300 of
Yeah,
those
the number
1,100.
of dwellings within the red area is about 1,100. The number of dwellings in the blue area is 300. Okay? Okay. So we want to assess the past and the future. It's human nature to expect that the future will be a continuation of the past. In reality, the future is rarely a continuation of the past. It takes a new course, a different course. Neighborhoods tend to either improve or decline over time. Sometimes change occurs so slowly that most people do not observe it, but change is always happening. The West Oak neighborhood has seen a slow but steady decline for several decades. Once central Goldsboro with a focus of economic and community activity, recently most investment has occurred on the perimeter of the community. New development, new housing, new stores, all of it, not all of it. I mean, the downtown has been a bright spot, but absent the downtown, all the investment has gone in the perimeter. More recently, a strong effort has been made to strengthen the downtown area, and major results have been achieved. Next slide. Before we talk about current trends and how they affect the neighborhood, let's get your current opinion on the expectations for the future. Based on current trends, do you think the West Oak area is poised for major improvement through reinvestment? Okay? Do you think, based on current trends, things that you observe, is the West Oak area poised for major improvement through reinvestment? Yes, no, or no opinion? Anybody still need more time? Okay, let's see what we got. Okay, so we've had 16 responses. 80% of the responses said yes, based on current trends, the West Oak neighborhood is poised for major improvement through reinvestment. A couple had no opinion. I think one person said no. So all of you, as a group, you all think prospects for improvement within the West Oak neighborhood are positive. Okay. Now we want to examine trends and see how this affects your opinion about the future. The following neighborhood trends will be presented to make sure you are aware of them and will be considered in your visioning input. So we have these, this is not a question, okay? We have these 5 kind of components: downtown development and business attraction, renovation of homes in the historic district, investment in housing from the Housing Authority of the City of Goldsboro, a robust network of public, private, and social services, and aging housing and building stock. So we're going to ask you your opinion on these 5 components going forward here. Okay. Now, downtown investment and business attraction. Downtown Goldsboro is generally recognized as a place that is the focus of community activities in Goldsboro. Significant public and private investment has occurred in recent years. These are examples of that. The hub opening in 2021, expanded downtown festivals and activities, new residential development and places to live in the downtown, new businesses and commercial properties, and the rehabilitation of existing buildings. And these are images of things happening in the downtown. This is all to set up for the next question. Okay, sorry. We're going to go through each of these 5 components. So B is the renovation of homes in the historic residential district. So this area west of the downtown over toward the train station. This is a historic area, predominantly residential. And it's part of a National Historic District, which provides financial incentives for renovating historic properties. Some historic homes have been renovated, but many more need renovation. Will the historic character, the designation as a historic district, and the financial incentives draw new investments in the future? That's not a question that we're going to ask you to respond to. Investment in housing from the Housing Authority. The Housing Authority is a major developer of housing in the community. The Housing Authority plans to replace the existing West Haven site with 500 to 600 new mixed income residents. This housing could be located anywhere within the neighborhood. Private sector investments are also planning additional housing and residential development in this area. Okay, so that's the housing component. Next slide. A robust network of public, private, and social services. As we said earlier, we need a plan in place to help residents of the area be successful. These are people services, and in the neighborhood we have City Hall, the police department, downtown stores and services, the Goldsboro Wayne Transit Depot, a lot of local churches, Wayne County offices, the library is nearby, not in the neighborhood, public schools not in the neighborhood but within walking distance, and quality daycare. So these are the services, and would these attract people to the neighborhood? Okay. And then lastly, aging housing and building stock. The neighborhood's historic character also represents a challenge. Most of the buildings are older and need rehabilitation, reinvestment to maintain their value and prevent obsolescence. Renovation, remodeling, and additions are needed. Some portions of the neighborhood need rehabilitation and reinvestment more than others. Can sufficient rehabilitation, reinvestment be drawn to the area to allow transformation to take hold? So we see all of these older homes in the neighborhood that need investment, that need repair. And so will there be enough investment drawn to really make a dramatic change? Okay, now we're going to ask you questions. Based on what we talked about in terms of current trends taking place within the West Oak neighborhood, let's ask you again for your opinion on expectations for the future. Based on the discussion of existing trends, okay, now that we've looked at the trends that are kind of acting on the neighborhood, we asked you this before without talking about any trends, but now we've talked about the trends. Based on the discussion of existing trends, do you think the area is poised for major improvement through reinvestment? Okay. So after talking about it, is your opinion the same? So press yes if you think the area is poised for major improvement through reinvestment, no if you don't think so, or C, no opinion. Okay. All good? Okay, let's see what we have here. Okay, so actually, we're probably a little stronger. We had one no that was changed to a yes. We still have a couple people who have no opinion. But based on looking at the trends that are acting on the neighborhood, the collective opinion is still the same, that the West Oak neighborhood is poised for major improvement through reinvestment. Okay. Now, let's talk about expectations for the sub-districts within the neighborhood. Okay, so as I said before, these 4 different sub-districts, they have different potentials, perhaps different challenges. Go back. Okay. So we want to ask you where you think positive trends are occurring that will result in future improvement in these 4 sub-districts. Okay. So now we go to the next question. Okay. In downtown Goldsboro, do you think an emerging upward trend exists in the downtown and it is on track to see major improvement in the future? Talking about the downtown specifically. Okay? Yes, no, no opinion.
So, Bill, just for clarification, or clarified in my mind, we're not talking about the impact necessarily of choice neighborhoods to...
No.
We're talking about...
We're talking about
the overall trend.
as things stand now, based on current trends. Okay? Is the downtown poised for a major upward improvement? Okay. Anybody need... Hang on just a second here. A, yes, B, no, C, no opinion. Okay. So over 90% of all of you said, based on current trends, what's happening now, what's already in place, and the trends going forward, the downtown is in the process of a major upward trend. Okay? So let's go to the next question. We're going to ask about the historic residential neighborhood, this area west of the downtown, over to the railroad tracks. Do you think an emerging upward trend exists in this area and is on track to see major improvement in the future? Okay, do you think that we're going to attract the kind of reinvestment we need to fix up substantially all of these older historic homes in the neighborhood? If you think yes, press A, no is B, or C, no opinion. Okay, anybody need more time? Okay, Mitch, what are the results? Okay, so here we have different opinions. Whereas virtually everybody thought the downtown was on track to see major improvement in the future, we have a little over 50% said yes, this area is on track to see major improvement in the future. 20% said no, about 25% said no opinion, or they're not sure. Okay? So this area, based on the collective opinion here, is less certain to see major improvement than the downtown. Okay. Now we're going to talk about this northeast area, okay? From Ash northward to the highway, and west to the highway. So it's kind of like a triangular area. The area north of Ash, it includes some industrial, but we're really talking about the whole area. So do you think that an emerging upward trend exists in this area and it is on track to see major improvement in the future? Okay. A for yes, B for no, C, not sure, and no opinion. Anybody need more time? Okay, let's see the results. Okay, so here over 60% of you thought the area was not poised for major improvement in the future based on current trends. A couple said yes, maybe 3 or 4 had no opinion or were not sure, but this area is even less certain than the historic residential area in terms of your anticipation of improvement in the future.
Plans.
Okay, now we have one more area to talk about. This is the southwest area. Generally well, newer than the historic area, but probably built 50, 60 years ago. So do you think an emerging upward trend exists in this area and is on track to see major improvement in the future? Okay, the southwest area. A for yes, B for no, C, no opinion.
Mr. James, would you describe that area again, please?
Okay, so it comes down to Elm Street on the bottom, goes over to Highway 117 on the west, up to Ash Street on the north, and the railroad tracks on the east.
Down in the corner is H.B. Brown Park here in this little area right here.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody need more time to respond to this question? Okay, Mitch, let's see what response is. Okay, so kind of similar to the northeast area, more than 50% of you said no, this area is not poised for major improvement. A couple of people said yes, a couple of people had no opinion. But when we go back and consider the 4 areas, everybody virtually thought the downtown was poised for major improvement. Most people said the historic residential area just west of the downtown was poised, but not, just over 50%. But then these other areas, northeast, southwest, the majority of people said no, it's not poised for major improvement based on current trends. Okay? So I think that's important to know. So I think when we talked about the area as a whole, many people really were influenced by the downtown and the prospects for the downtown and saying, yes, this neighborhood as a whole is poised for major improvement. But when we look at the different sub-districts, we get a little different picture. Okay. So now let's talk about West Haven. If West Haven were redeveloped into an attractive mixed-income housing site, what effect would this have on the broader neighborhood investment? Okay. Let's say we look into the future and the West Haven site is this wonderful mixed-income housing development. What effect would that have on broader investment in the neighborhood? A, no effect. A negative effect. B, no effect. C, a positive effect. D, major positive effect. Or E, don't know, don't have an opinion. Okay, so this tries to get at how much does West Haven influence the broader neighborhood. Okay, so if you think it would have a major effect on the neighborhood to redevelop West Haven, you're going to answer D. If you think it will have no effect or negative effect, A or B. Okay, who needs more time? Okay, let's see our results here. So the consensus here is that it would have a positive effect on the neighborhood as a whole. The strongest response was a major positive effect with over 50%. Positive effect was 40%. And maybe only 1 or 2 people said don't know or no opinion. So clearly, this group thinks that the redevelopment of West Haven would have a significant positive effect on investment in the neighborhood generally. Okay. Now,
Question, Bill.
yes. Yes, so the northeast and southwest portions, these were sub-districts within the neighborhood. Well, actually, West Haven is part of the northeast area, the northeast sub-district. Yes. Right. West Haven was in 3, actually. Yeah, yeah. Okay. Okay. So looking and assessing improvement potential for the neighborhood, we want to look at improvement potential in the context of what do people want in a neighborhood. If we want to attract people to the neighborhood, we need a lot of new homes built in the neighborhood. We want to attract new families to the neighborhood. What do people want in a neighborhood? What are people looking for in a place to live? Let's compare what the West Oak neighborhood has to offer with what people want in a neighborhood. So we're going to talk first about what we all think people want in a neighborhood, okay? And then we're going to compare what we've defined as what people want with what we have to offer in the West Oak neighborhood. So if given a choice, which of the following represents the kind of place where most people want to live in Goldsboro? Do people want to live, A, in a gated community, B, a large lot house on the edge of town, C, a quiet, secluded neighborhood in town, D, a quality neighborhood with a stimulating lifestyle, or E, no opinion or you're not sure?
Mr. James, can you talk about this question and how it applies?
Yes.
Because, I mean, it's downtown, right? Or it's all around downtown. So how do you get a quiet neighborhood on the edge of town?
Well, so we're not actually talking about the neighborhood here. We're talking about where do people want to live? What kind of a residential setting do people want? And if we can't offer that in West Haven, then in West Oak, then that may limit our improvement potential. So we're just really asking, where do you think people who are in Goldsboro or would look for a home in Goldsboro, what kind of a residential setting are they looking for?
Generically speaking.
Yeah, just generally speaking. Okay? Anybody need additional time? Okay, let's see our results here. Okay, so a quality neighborhood with a stimulating, like almost 90% of people thought that that's what people, they don't want a gated community. Some people might, a person here might or there. Not that many people want a large lot house on the edge of town or a quiet, secluded neighborhood in town. 90% of you said a quality neighborhood with a stimulating lifestyle is what people want. Okay? So that's an aspiration. Okay? Let's go to the next question in terms of what people want. Do you think many people would want to live in a neighborhood that is walkable, has stores and shops and things to do nearby? Do people want a neighborhood that's walkable and has stores, shops, and things to do nearby? Yes or no? Anybody need more time? Let's see what people think people want. Okay, so 100% of you said that people want a neighborhood that is walkable and has stores and shops and things to do nearby. Okay? Let's go then to question 11. Do you think many people would want to live in a neighborhood that has a variety of housing types, designs, or houses that are mostly the same? Do you think many people would want to live in a neighborhood that has a variety of house types and designs, or a neighborhood where houses are mostly the same? So if you think people prefer having a variety of house types and designs, press A. If you think people prefer to have houses that are mostly the same, press B. Okay? Last chance. Mitch? Okay. So everybody thought that most people would want to live in a neighborhood where the houses have a variety of styles and designs, that they're not like tract housing that all looks the same. Okay, let's go on to the next set of questions. Do you think many people would be attracted to a neighborhood that has a high-quality school and state-of-the-art public park? Is that something that people really want in their neighborhood? High-quality school and a state-of-the-art public park. If you think that's yes, A. If you don't think that's important, press B. Okay? Let's see what we have here. Okay, so everybody thought that people would want a neighborhood that has a high-quality school and a state-of-the-art public park. So we have a lot of consensus here, as we're seeing. 13, do you think people would want to live in a historic neighborhood with distinctive character? Yes or no? Again, not everybody, but do you think many people would want to live in a historic neighborhood with distinctive character? Yes is A. Not really so much that historic character is important would be B. Okay, Mitch, let's see what our responses here are. Okay, so we have a 50-50 split. Okay, which is good to know. Some people think that a lot of people would want to live in a historic neighborhood with distinctive character, and a lot of people thought that, well, it's not important if people wouldn't want that. Okay? All right. So 14, do you think many people would want to live in a neighborhood with a range of house prices, values, or in a neighborhood where houses all have the same price value? So do you think, if you think people prefer living in a neighborhood with a range of house values, you press A. Prefer a neighborhood with all the same house values would be B. Give you just a minute. You should be used to this by now, so let's see what we have here, Mitch. Okay, so 70% of you thought most people would prefer to live in a neighborhood that has a range of house prices and values versus a homogeneous range of prices and values. Okay? Question 15, how important is a safe / low crime neighborhood to people in terms of where they choose to live? Is it the most important thing, very important, moderately important, or not very important? A, B, C, or D? Okay? That, take whatever time you need. Okay, most important, very important, moderately important, or not very important? Okay, let's see our results here. Over 80% of you thought a safe, low-crime neighborhood was the most important thing in selecting where to live. Okay? So that is also very important for us to know here. Nobody thought it was even moderately important or not very important. Okay, most important, or a few of you said very important. So we move on to 16. How do people assess neighborhood safety? How do people assess what's a safe neighborhood? Do they go by police statistics? They actually look at police statistics? Do they form their opinion based on word of mouth, what people are saying about various neighborhoods in the city? Do they judge by neighborhood appearance? So this looks like a safe neighborhood, or this looks like an unsafe neighborhood. Is that how they assess neighborhood safety? Or personal experience? They personally have had an experience with the neighborhood either being safe or unsafe, and that forms their opinion. If you're not sure, say E, and if you think multiple of these apply, you think police statistics and neighborhood appearance are the keys, you can press more than one. Okay? So, a little more complex question than others. So we'll give people a little bit more time here. No, you can choose more than one. It won't take it. Okay, then you're going to, whatever you think is most important, put that in first. Okay, so let's see what we have here, Mitch. Okay, so a variety of opinion here in terms of how people assess neighborhood safety, but the most important factor seems to be neighborhood appearance. So about 35% thought that was how people formed their opinion on neighborhood safety. Police statistics, word of mouth also were factors. A little bit on personal experience, but okay, so neighborhood appearance is very important in terms of forming this opinion about a safe neighborhood. Okay. Let's move on to the next set of questions. Okay. So now we're going to talk about the West Oak neighborhood. Can the West Oak neighborhood be improved and transformed to align with what people want in a neighborhood? So if we look back on what we talked about, so the preferred type of neighborhood, this was, do people want to live in a gated community? Do they want to live in a neighborhood with a stimulating lifestyle? So can we create the West Oak neighborhood to be that kind of preferred neighborhood, an attractive neighborhood with a stimulating lifestyle? Okay. Now, do we ask for people, Mitch? This is not a question, right? Okay. So based on what we've seen, based on what all of you have said, I think we check yes for a preferred type of neighborhood, because if there's any place in Goldsboro that can be that kind of stimulating lifestyle kind of neighborhood, it's going to be this neighborhood in the central Goldsboro. If we look at creating a walkable neighborhood, is that something we can create in the West Oak neighborhood? And I think the answer to that is yes. It is among the most walkable neighborhoods. It has stores and shops nearby and things to do, okay? So, and you can access all of that via walking. So I think we check yes there. If we look at variety of house types and designs, so currently the homes in this neighborhood exhibit a variety of sizes and styles and designs. So I think we check yes under a variety of house types and designs. Quality school and park. Okay, so I think right now we don't have a quality school and park in the neighborhood. We don't have a school in the neighborhood to begin with. And there are a couple of parks, wouldn't say they were state-of-the-art public parks. Right now, I think, can the neighborhood be improved to align with what people want? And okay, so do we think we can build a quality school and a high-quality neighborhood park in the neighborhood? Let's just see a show. Do you think that this community can do that here in this neighborhood? How many think we can? Do you think we can?
I think we can do a park, I don't know, school.
The school, okay. It doesn't have to be a Wayne County school, okay? So let's say no for that one right now, okay? Let's try to balance this out. So historic neighborhood. So that was 50-50. We do have a historic neighborhood here, but about 50% of the people thought that was important. 50% said it wasn't. So let's just put checks on both of those, yes and no, because it is historic, but we don't think everybody wants historic. Range of house values, I think the answer to this is yes, we're going to have a range of house values. There is a range of house values here now. And creating a safe neighborhood. So I think, we didn't ask this question, but how many of you think that the neighborhood has a problem in terms of perception of being safe right now? Is there a problem here? Okay. Okay. Do you think we can address that and create a perception of it being a safe neighborhood? How many of you think we can? We can. Put your hands up if you think we can. Okay, so let's put a check on yes. It is not safe now, but we can make it safe. So if you look at what the neighborhood has to offer in terms of what all of you have said people want in a neighborhood, okay?
And can we go back to the high-quality school and public park, I think you probably need an X in both of those blocks. Because at least the public park was mentioned that we should be able to
Okay,
do
yeah.
something along that line. But
Yes.
you also need to understand that there's already a school in this district, right?
Well, yeah.
in the
you're talking
neighborhood?
about,
Yes.
Excuse me.
What is that
excuse me.
neighborhood?
You're talking about Dillard Academy?
Yes.
But did we not say that Dillard was not, it was on the outside of this planning?
I thought Dillard was outside the boundary.
Yeah, that's, so
Let's
it's not
confirm.
included. School Street is not, yeah,
not in the
but
southwest.
School Street is not the school that it used to be. It's for specific.
Is it outside the boundary?
Students.
Yeah, okay. It's currently, people think it's, I think it's outside the boundary.
Can you go
Well,
back to the boundary real
that's
quick? It
what was
looks like it's
stated,
in the
that's what was
boundary.
told to me in one of these meetings, that Dillard
Can
was
you go back to
outside
the
the boundary.
Dillard Academy is on the southeast side of Elm Street, so it would be outside of the boundary.
Yes, it is south of Elm Street, yes.
Okay, it's on Elm Street. It's
Just on the opposite
slightly-
side of Elm Street, yeah.
Slightly outside your boundary, which enables a new school within this boundary. So
And let's talk about Dillard Academy. So I am not of the community, and I've talked to a lot of people about education here and how parents influence where their kids go to school. Is Dillard Academy thought of as a high-quality school right now?
Dillard Academy is a high-quality school.
Okay.
They have an excellent principal there.
Uh-huh.
She has done outstanding things
Okay.
with those students over there at Dillard Academy.
I think part of the thought process is that serves this community. I'm not
Uh-huh.
sure another school would go in there. I
What,
know
what,
people have
what
looked at
age
it.
group does it serve? What grades does it serve?
Elementary.
Eighth?
K through 8, okay, okay,
Yes.
all right. So, we also have high school to think about. And I know that in the neighborhood, there is the Wayne School of Engineering and Goldsboro High School, yes.
Not in the neighborhood.
Well, I can't define quality. Quality is a subjective opinion of what people think. Yeah. So what I would define quality is that it would be a school where a prospective homebuyer would look at that school and say, I'm more inclined to buy a home in here because I know my child will go to that school.
Well, I would have to disagree, that I don't think that Dillard Academy would be considered.
Dillard Academy is, I'm not going to argue, but Dillard Academy has made great strides, and it has come up to great levels. I'd like for you to check the website and what the things that Dillard has done.
Yeah. So we have done that. We have in our data book, I think we have school report cards for all the schools that would serve the area, serve the neighborhood. I don't recall how Dillard, rates in that, but, it's available for everybody to see on the North Carolina Department of Education website. You can see it for yourself.
Yes, and please check there,
Yeah.
because it's done some great things
Yeah, I would encourage,
compared to some of the other schools.
because in making the plan, okay, we're going to make a neighborhood plan, we're going to make a people plan. Education is kind of one of the most important of those people in neighborhood kind of things. So, and we have heard from various people we've talked to in the community that education overall is an issue here. We talked about it. Actually, we've heard that folks at the Army base think it's an issue, and other people think it's an issue. So, yes, ma'am.
Yes, sir. I don't have school-aged children.
Right.
Mine are all grown and gone, but my question is, irregardless of whether Dillard Academy is a wonderful school or not, if you're going to be attracting not 300 more families, say,
Uh-huh.
that is there, 300 more plus families than what is already there, then to me, I would think you would need a new school, because I don't know what the capacity of Dillard Academy would be to handle those children coming from those 300 plus more homes. So I think you would need a new school to handle the capacity of all the new families.
So there could be a capacity issue. In my personal opinion, if we're creating this wonderful neighborhood that we want to attract all these people to, it would be nice to have an identifiable school for that neighborhood that's actually in the neighborhood and is associated with that neighborhood. So nothing against Dillard, but if Dillard is outside the neighborhood and it serves people both inside and outside the neighborhood, it might be better to have a school inside the neighborhood that people can say, that's this neighborhood school, and it's a great school. Just my opinion.
And so according to the North Carolina State Board, Dillard Academy receives a D, they give it a D in performance out of, so from A, B, C.
Yeah, there aren't that, yeah, there are very few A's, not that many B's. So education overall nationwide has had problems in terms of academic proficiency is actually declining nationwide. It is something that needs work on, and we should just recognize that as something to address in the plan.
Part of these fundings could help build that school, correct?
Yes, so if we got a grant, yes, we could have certain millions of dollars to build a new school.
If I may, I just want to reiterate, City of Goldsboro does not operate any schools.
Understood.
Zero.
Yeah.
We're not in discussions with a charter operator to operate a school to compete with anybody. And I don't want this conversation to continue to kind of spiral into something that isn't really in our current scope of work. I understand that it could, but I don't want folks over at Dillard to think that we're trying to recruit another charter operator to come and compete with them in these neighborhoods. I just want to reiterate that, yeah, public parks, 100%, that's in our scope, right? But I worry this conversation might be sliding a little bit outside of things that we can directly impact.
And I think it's well and good to make that statement for this city council, because education is not your scope of responsibilities. It is definitely part of the scope of the Choice Neighborhoods Plan.
Understood.
Okay? So we do need to address it in the context of the Choice Neighborhoods Plan.
And it's part of the visioning process.
And it's part of the visioning process.
Which is
yes.
why I wanted to mention Dillard being out there, even though it's on the very limits.
Yes, yes. Okay, let's move on. Let's talk about the amount of affordable housing we want to have in this neighborhood and in the plan. So only a small portion of households whose incomes qualify for assistance actually receive it. I think that's important to understand, is that there's a whole lot of low-mod households who do not receive any kind of assistance for housing, okay? Low-mod households that do not receive housing often live in substandard housing, so there's a reason they can afford housing because, frankly, it's not maintained well, and that's got problems of its own. That kind of situation. Creating income-restricted affordable housing ensures that low-mod households will be part of the income mix going forward. A lot of choice neighborhood planning processes, there's the fear of what's called gentrification, where as the conditions improve, cost of housing goes up, rents go up, and the households that have been there for a long time can't afford to stay there, okay? So when you have income-restricted housing, that means that the rents for that housing can't rise above a certain level so that low-mod households can continue to afford it. So that is all a context for this question here. How much affordable housing should there be in the neighborhood? Okay, this is going to be a question that you're going to answer. And your options are A, B, C, or D. There's too much affordable housing in the neighborhood now, so in the future, the number of affordable housing units should be reduced. If that's how you feel, you press A. If you feel the current number of affordable housing units should be maintained, like the number of affordable housing units that we have in the neighborhood, income-restricted affordable housing units, what we have now is the right amount. We want to maintain that, you press B. If you believe that the number of income-restricted affordable housing units should be equal to the number of neighborhood low-mod households identified in the 2020 census, you press C. So that says we should have an amount of income-restricted housing that's equal to the number of low-mod households that we have in the neighborhood now. everybody gets an income restricted housing unit who's low mod now. Okay? And D, you don't really have an opinion, you're not sure, you don't want to state your opinion on this, you press D. So
How does B and C differ?
okay, so B is the number of affordable housing units that we have now is the right amount and should be maintained. Okay, so how many income restricted affordable housing units do we have here? Well, we have 300 in West Haven. I'm not sure, and I know there are some others over by the high school, and so we'd have to see exactly how many. Let's say we have 1,100 units here now, and if 45% of the households are low mod, okay, that means that probably we should have about, that there are about 500 low mod households, but maybe we only have, 400 income restricted housing units. Okay, so that means that there are somewhere around 100 low mod households that don't have income restricted housing units. So C would be that higher number, that we're going to have an income restricted housing unit for every low mod household in the neighborhood. Okay? Okay? Does everybody understand the distinction there? Okay, so register your thoughts on how much affordable housing we should have in the neighborhood. Anybody need more time? Okay. Okay, so the greatest response was C. The number of income restricted affordable housing units should be equal to the number of neighborhood low mod households identified in the 2020 census. Okay? Now realize that in terms of proportion, this number is actually going to go down as we bring in more market rate units into the neighborhood. The actual number of low mod households will remain the same because we've got income restricted units there, but their proportion of the total. So let's say we bring in another 900 units total, and so we have 2,000 units in the neighborhood. We still have 500 low mod. We could have more, but we know we have at least 500 in the neighborhood now, and we probably have a few more, but the overall proportion would be less. Okay? And let's go to the next policy question. Okay, so household wealth and home ownership. I think it's important for people to understand the connection here. Home ownership is a key element of household net worth. Now, not all people should necessarily be homeowners, but in 2019, the median household net worth in the U.S. was $122,000, okay? The average net worth of households in the whole United States was about $122,000. Homeowner households had an average net worth of $255,000. Okay, so about double the average if you're a homeowner. If you're a renter households had an average net worth of $6,300. So we can see there is a strong correlation between home ownership and net household worth. There are multiple factors involved, but incenting home ownership fosters upward economic mobility. This term, upward economic mobility, is a HUD term. HUD wants to see residents of the neighborhood achieve upward economic mobility. HUD wants to see the residents of the target housing site, West Haven, achieve upward economic mobility, and they want us to track this over time. Okay, so at some point in people's life cycles, they need to be homeowners to reap the financial benefits of home ownership. So this is all a background information to ask you this next question. Okay, one more informational question. So home ownership is the primary source of wealth creation among families, and has many economic and societal benefits. Now, if you're really a highly wealthy person like Elon Musk or somebody like that, the home value of your house is not really a major part of your overall wealth, but for average people like us, the value of a home is a big part of your overall net worth. Housing wealth is built mainly by appreciation gains. Okay, you do pay off your mortgage over time, but it's the appreciation of your house that gives you more of that equity, that financial equity. In the past 30 years, single-family existing home prices have increased at an annual pace of 4.3%. Okay, that's in the past 30 years. Now, in the last 10 years, that pace of appreciation has about doubled to 8.3% in the last 10 years. So, if you had bought a single-family home 10 years ago at a median sales price of $162,000, you would likely to have accumulated $229,000 in housing wealth. Okay, that the value of your house after 10 years has appreciated almost $229,000. Okay, so this was a study prepared by the National Association of Realtors, who have a vested interest in people buying homes, but still, I think it's important for people to understand that upward economic mobility, that home ownership can be a part of upward economic mobility. So let's get rid of that. Let's go to the next question. What should be the vision for rental versus ownership housing? And we give you 4 options. In our plan, do we want to emphasize rental, home ownership have an equal amount? So if you think rental housing is most suitable for downtown Goldsboro, but ownership housing should be emphasized elsewhere, you press A. If you think ownership housing should be emphasized in general, even for affordable housing, you press B. If you think the plan should be guided by the findings of the market study, press C. If you have no opinion, press D. This is ownership versus rental housing. That's what this topic is all about. Okay? So, a little more complex of a question. Please log your answers and let me know if you need more time. Okay, Mitch. So here's what the group thinks about ownership versus rental housing. Ownership, that would be B. Ownership housing should be emphasized in general, even for affordable housing. So about 55% said that. The next most frequent answer is C. The plan should be guided by the findings of the market study, which is 30%. The thing about the market study is that the market study will kind of tell you what the demand is for ownership versus rental, but it may not factor in all of the incentives that could be used to get people who would prefer ownership versus rental housing into that ownership housing. But anyway, B and C were clearly the preference of the group here in terms of ownership versus rental housing. Okay. Now we have a question on upward economic mobility. A large component of the neighborhood transformation should be helping low-mod residents achieve upward economic mobility. Okay, so when we talk about new housing units and people buying new housing or renting new housing, we want our existing residents to be a large component of these people who are buying and renting new housing, as well as other things. So it is important that existing residents can participate in the positive economic activity of the neighborhood. This is particularly true for the residents of the target housing site, which is a key focus of the Choice program, as most residents of West Haven have low incomes. I believe the average household income in West Haven is about $12,500, compared with, I think, a citywide average of something around $39,000 or $40,000, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, so there is a need to achieve upward economic mobility at West Haven and throughout the neighborhood generally among low-mod households. So given that as a backdrop, what should be the strategy for achieving upward economic mobility? And we have 5 options here. Encourage participation in local programs for adult education, job training, and job placement. If you think that is kind of the key strategy, you press A. If you think transition West Haven residents to mixed income housing where residents can engage with neighbors of different backgrounds, bolstering inclusivity and promoting opportunities for all. So if you think the mixed income community in and of itself will help foster upward economic mobility, you press B. If you think that promoting as much home ownership as possible is the answer, since home ownership correlates with upward economic mobility, you press C. If you think that A, B, and C are all strategies to pursue, you press D, all of the above. Or if you're not sure on any of this, you press E. Okay? So, anybody need more time? I think you probably pressed, as I was talking, you pressed your answer. Okay, so let's see what we have in terms of how we would foster upward economic mobility. So all of the above is clearly the consensus of the group. So all of those things there we want to do to foster upward economic mobility. Okay? A clear consensus. Now, is there another question? Education. So we get to the education question here. What should be the strategy for achieving quality education options? Okay, so what people are going to want here when they look, do I want to move into this neighborhood? They got this new housing being built here. They're going to want to be able to say, I have the right option for educating my child. Okay? And so would that be work with Wayne County schools to improve education in all public schools? Is that the strategy that we should pursue? B, establish charter or private schools for the neighborhood, local area that can be operated outside of the Wayne County school system. C, focus on supplemental after-school and summer school educational service provided by nonprofit partners. So maybe a strategy is, okay, outside of the school, we can get the kind of supplemental education that we need to make sure our kids achieve a quality education. Okay, that would be C. D is none of the above, or E, no opinion. Okay, so we want to get some sense as to what our strategy should be for achieving high quality education. And hopefully all of you have registered your response here. So the most frequently cited strategy would be establish charter or private schools for the neighborhood or local area that can be operated outside of the Wayne County school system. I happen to think that that's the most achievable strategy. I'm not making an editorial comment here, but we've invited Wayne County schools to interact with us, to be part of our steering committee to participate, and we have gotten no response at all after repeated attempts. Not that that says that it couldn't be possible, but it's hard to engage with people who won't engage with you. So just want to get that out there. Anybody want to comment on this question here?
So who did we contact from Wayne County Public Schools?
We've contacted numerous folks on the board. Ken Dirksen actually did agree to be on the steering committee, but he did not attend our meeting.
Maybe you want to contact the new superintendent?
Yeah, so a new superintendent has just come on board, right? Okay. We will contact that superintendent. And actually, I've talked to, personally with the principals at both the Wayne Engineering School and the Goldsboro High School about getting their students involved and visioning, or offering to get their students involved in visioning. And they both said they would, but neither of them apparently have responded to that request to send emails to their students inviting them to participate in the planning process for the neighborhood. So I think there's a little bit of work to do on that. Again, we're newcomers here. We don't know the whole background. but I'm just telling you the experience that we've had so far with Wayne County School Systems has not been, I think, ideal for the planning process. Okay, do we have another question? Okay. This is what types of new housing do you think belong in the West Oak neighborhood? Check all that apply. Okay, so
This one does work for check all that apply.
does this work?
This one does work for check all that apply.
Okay, thank you, Mitch, thank you. Would mid-rise apartment buildings be a type of housing we want in the neighborhood? Would townhomes be what we want in the neighborhood? Obviously, we probably want a mix, but maybe not all of these should be in the neighborhood. Market rate single family, affordable single family or duplex, historic infill. So check all of those that apply, all those that you think should be part of the housing program. Okay, anybody need more time? Let's see the results. Okay, so we had a lot of support for townhomes, a market rate single family, and affordable single family duplex. Not so much for the mid-rise and not so much for the historic infill. Okay. Now, I'm not quite sure what we do in the historic residential area on the vacant lots. We have to put housing in there. It probably needs to be historic infill, but maybe that's a small component of the overall housing program. Okay, let's go on to new stores and services. So how important would having new stores and services be in creating a distinctive brand for the West Oak neighborhood? Okay. Kind of touched on this in terms of walkability and some other things, but this is asking the question directly about stores and services. Are they very important, somewhat important, or not important? And let's see what the result is, Mitch. So either very important, nearly 70% said very important to the neighborhood brand, attracting people to the neighborhood and all of that. Somewhat important was 30, and nobody said it was not important. So this has to be, I think, a significant part of our neighborhood plan, how to get new stores and services in the neighborhood. Next question. This asks, where do you think new stores and services would be most beneficial in terms of location? Where should they be located? If you think in the downtown to make it more of an attraction, you press A. B, on Ash Street as part of the mixed-use redevelopment of the surrounding West Haven site, if you think that's like the best location for new stores and services. If you think new stores and services should be distributed throughout the neighborhood, press C. Or if you're not sure or don't know, press D. Okay, so where should these new stores and services be located? And let's go to see what people said. Okay, the vast majority of people said distributed throughout the neighborhood. There's no one location that should be the focus of new stores and services. So that should guide us in terms of how we plan for new commercial in the plan. And okay, so if we're talking about transformation, where we focus, or do we focus transformation? Should the plan seek to achieve an equal degree of transformation throughout the neighborhood as a whole, or focus on priority areas? Okay? So we had those 4 sub-districts we talked about. Okay? Should it be focused? If you think equal transformation throughout the whole neighborhood is what we should pursue, you press A. If you think there are certain priority areas that should be the focus of where we transform, first, you press B. If you're not sure, don't know, press C. So, Mitch? Okay, so here we have equal opinions in terms of equal transformation throughout the neighborhood and a focus on priority areas. 45% for each Probably one person said, don't know, not sure. So this is something we'll have to resolve as we move through the planning process. Okay, location of replacement housing. So we talked about the ability to bring it all back to the West Haven site or to distribute it within the neighborhood. So the planning process should assess all viable locations. What is your initial sense as to where the replacement housing should be located? A, on the West Haven site, B, in the downtown and nearby residential areas, C, split between West Haven and the downtown area, D, distributed throughout the whole neighborhood, or E, not sure, don't know. Okay, we are going to see our results right now. So the vast majority of people think that the replacement housing program, the location of the new housing should be distributed throughout the neighborhood. Okay? Now we have a couple more important questions about housing. Housing rehabilitation versus new construction. So all of our conversation here has been really focused on new construction, but we can choose to rehabilitate housing too as part of our housing program. So assuming that the existing housing at West Haven will undergo reconstruction rather than rehabilitation, how should the plan address the need to rehabilitate privately owned housing in the neighborhood? Okay, so I mean, it is possible that rather than build all new housing, part of the program could buy older housing that needs to be rehabilitated and fix that up. Okay? So what should we do? Should we build quality new housing and the market will be induced to rehabilitate the older existing housing? So this says we're just really focused on building new and let the market take care of rehabbing the older housing. So that would be response A. Response B is use some of the replacement housing program to renovate buildings in the historic district. So maybe we really want to make sure that historic residential area west of the downtown gets improved, and we're willing to use part of our housing replacement program for that. That would be B. C is use some of the replacement housing program to do demonstration projects in different sub-districts. So this would be in the northeast area and the southwest area, have demonstration projects that show how to do replacement housing here and how you could do market rate housing here. Okay, that would be C. Or D, not sure or don't know. Okay, so this is another kind of complex question. If you need more time, let me know. Otherwise, let's see our results. So housing rehab versus new construction. So we have an almost equal distribution in the four response times. And actually, this is kind of a technical question. It really requires a lot of thought and evaluation of different options. So I think having this mix of opinions is a good thing. We can look at all of these and come back to the group and say, hey, what about this? What about this? What about this? So I think not a consensus, but certainly direction on how to move forward. So we're going to near the end of our visioning workshop here. So we want to ask you about a vision statement. Is there one of these three statements that kind of best expresses, encapsulates, summarizes what you think the vision for the West Oak neighborhood should be? So we have A, West Oak neighborhood. West Oak is the neighborhood of choice for people who want a diverse setting that is rich in community interaction. Does that statement best reflect your sense of what West Oak should become? B, West Oak is an attractive neighborhood of mixed uses where people of all incomes and backgrounds live together, creating a vibrant and inclusive community. If you think that statement reflects what the vision for West Oak should be, press B. C, West Oak successfully merges historic character with new mixed income development to create the most interesting and most active neighborhood in Goldsboro. If you think that statement reflects what you think the West Oak neighborhood should become, press C. And if you don't think any of those statements reflect the vision for the neighborhood, press D. Okay? All right, Mitch, let's see if we have a consensus here. So actually, in this group, far and away, the preferred statement is B. West Oak is an attractive neighborhood of mixed uses where people of all incomes and backgrounds live together, creating a vibrant and inclusive community. So I think that in terms of these kinds of questions, that's a pretty strong consensus. Okay? And Mitch, do we have any others? Is that it? Okay. Okay. So that is our visioning workshop. We're going to conduct the same type of workshop with residents. So we have, I believe it's 2 more sessions that are lined up with residents of the West Haven community and residents of the West Oak neighborhood who don't live in West Haven. So we really need to get a lot of input from residents. So we're going to really focus on that going forward. We're going to have 2 more of these sessions during this trip, and we will let you know how people respond. I would say the session that we had with the committee, I think, aligned with what we are saying today very strongly. And I think we had 1 session with West Haven residents on the same vision platform, and their responses aligned with what we heard today. So ideally, we go to all the different groups in the community and we pose these same sets of questions on the vision for the community, and we get hopefully the same answers from all the different groups. That means that we have a strong consensus about how to improve the neighborhood going forward and a good basis for guiding the plan as we get to the more detailed aspects of the planning process.
Bill, first of all, thank you for this. This has been very informative, and the participation, I think, has been pretty good. We did set a time limit of 1:30, and I would invite those of you who want to grab a sandwich and eat something, do so. Do you have more discussion?
No, this is it.
Okay, that's what I thought, but I also invite the members sitting around the table here to ask you any follow-on questions they might have.
Yeah, and we have time. We can sit and talk with people who have time, go into more detail, or talk about anything you want to talk about. So, pardon me?
Okay.
Yeah, so we do have some upcoming events here this trip. So a couple of things are happening. We do have our market consultant in town. If there's anything that you want to ask, have me ask him or ask somebody else to ask the market. If you want to actually talk to him yourself, I can try to arrange it, but just wanted to let you know that the market consultant that is funded by the choice process is here in the community doing his reconnaissance right now. We will be having a neighborhood outreach event, engagement event, big event, Saturday evening. What's the time, like 4 to 9 or something? Okay.
4 to 9.
4 to 9 is going to take place at the hub, and there'll be a DJ and a bouncy house and other things on the open space across the street from the hub. So we encourage everybody to come out, and it's really intended to get the neighborhood residents aware of the process and what it's all about, and to hopefully get them to participate moving forward in engagement events that we have. But it would be great for all of you to see that the neighborhood residents out there and engaging with us on the process. So that is Saturday night. And then we have a bunch of just technical meetings that we're doing between now and Saturday night. Anything else that I'm missing,
Let
Sierra?
me just ask you, speak briefly about the steering commission.
Okay.
Committee.
Okay. So in every choice planning process, we typically form a steering committee. A steering committee is a broad-based group comprised of both stakeholders, officials, and residents of the target housing site, residents of the neighborhood. They provide our overall review body and sanction for the plan. And hopefully the membership of the steering committee is such that people in the community, when they say that, see that the people that they know on the steering committee have endorsed the plan, have reviewed the plan, that they have faith that then the plan is the right plan for the community. So it's, the steering committee is intended to be a diverse group of stakeholders and residents that have committed to put in the time and effort to review the plan, engage with us, and put their seal of approval on the plan when it's all said and done.
And,
This,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
yeah, the marketing person, is that Mr. Gross?
Yes,
Gross.
Randall Gross.
Okay,
Yes,
all right. I would like to speak with him.
okay.
Yes.
Would you give a general overall
Would you
brief
like me to
statement
continue?
as to this current status of the Choice Neighborhood
Okay.
Program?
Yes.
As where we are?
Yeah, so we are, I'm going to say we're approaching probably 1/3 of the way through the process. The key upcoming benchmark event will be the preparation of what's called a plan outline with content. That's to be delivered to HUD on December 31st. And it provides, it's not the plan, but it's basically the outline of the plan, some of the key points in the plan. So we will be working between now and then to get input for that document. We are in the process of analyzing issues, opportunities, and strategies. We are a little bit behind on our working groups. We really need to get all of the working groups staffed with people who want to take on these issues. So we'll be coming to some of you and getting suggestions for membership on these working groups. So that's something that we're a little bit behind on, to be honest. We will be forming, after we get through the process of identifying assets, challenges, and opportunities, we are going to then form a committee for the people plan, a committee for the neighborhood plan, and a committee for the neighborhood plan. So we don't want to be making the plan. I mean, it should be the community's plan. And so we would want something 8 to 10 people on each of these committees, okay, to work with us, to tell us what we should put in the plan. We'll do the writing, we'll do the drawing, but we want all of you to tell us what should be in the plan. We'll help you with ideas and suggestions, but we want it to come from you. So those committees are going to probably be formed around September, October of this year.
So the Housing Authority is the lead on the planning program, correct?
They were the lead applicant, and
Yeah, they were lead applicant.
Yeah,
The
they're the
city
lead
is the
applicant.
co-lead.
And, and they are the
You're not going to lead them out of the organization.
oh, absolutely not.
of
We
these.
talk with them on
I
an
know
everyday
you're right. I
basis.
just
Okay,
wanted-
yeah, everybody should know
For the
that,
sake
yeah.
of public discussion here.
Maybe we could publish a steering
Yeah,
committee,
yeah.
get something out, some kind of notification on who's on that steering committee and where you need help with
Yeah,
working groups.
and let me emphasize that we do have a project website, westoakchoice.com, and it has a lot of information. I don't know if we have steering committee membership on the website, Mitch?
We don't have the members of the steering committee listed on the website
Okay,
yet,
well,
but we can add that.
Yeah, we're going to do that. Anything you want in terms of public information on the process, we'll put on the website. That's what it's there for. So all of the plans, we're going to put, do we have any of these results on the website?
Not yet, probably after our trip this
Okay.
week, the next
Okay.
couple of sessions, we'll put updated visioning.
Yeah, and we can
Results.
update it as we get more input, you know.
Yes.
So it is a constantly evolving website.
Sure.
So that, people should be aware of that.
Does any member of the Housing Authority Board have any questions? Thank you. How about
Thank you so much for attending. And we hope this is kind of the spirit of cooperation that we have between the City Council and Housing Authority Board. We need everybody to be pulling in the same direction on it, to get all of our stakeholders, all of our resources committed and aligned so that we can maximize the benefit of it to improving the neighborhood.
Mr. James, I would like to say that we do appreciate being invited to this meeting today because we are partners in this project, and we appreciate the efforts of the city to work with us in getting this done. It's going to be a wonderful thing for Goldsboro.
Well, we thank you for attending as well, because you definitely have a stake in this. Let me get to my council and members and ask if they have any questions.
No questions. I just echo your appreciation for y'all making time to come on somewhat short notice and be able to do something together. The different boards and bodies that make all of these things happen. It's really important that we get together and do these things publicly and let people see that there are conversations. So thank you so much for making time for your day, Madam Chairman.
Again, thank you in the audience who attended today. This is a formal council meeting, so if there are no further questions or discussions, meeting is adjourned.
Thank you so
You can
much.
stick around and talk if you like.
Have a sandwich.
And
Be
eat.
here. Talk to us.
You got to get back to work?